So, Andrew, hopefully you're back, sitting on his sofa or somewhere. We've got some exciting people on motorbikes outside. When I was doing these slides, Andrew is the person who kept on popping up. If you've met Andrew Taylor, you'll know why he's very, this is the sort of thing that I think floats his boat. So, Andrew, if you were here, hopefully you'd be smiling, and then you're going to have loads of questions. And just as a caveat, so I've always wanted to have this thing, and I've always called it, in my mind, the Virtual Verifier. I have talked about it before. Bear in mind, this doesn't exist. Okay, this is it's a fantasy. Okay, it's what I want to aspire to. It's what I've always wanted to aspire to. But there are dragons and pits along the way. So I thought rather than, and I've been honestly tinkering with it for ages. So, but I decided that it's not the right thing to do without doing it in partnership with people who are doing it. So that's why I want to announce here that this is a project we're going to start. So what I've always wanted to do, and has always been the reason for AssessTech, and you might think otherwise, but it's always to make the railway proactive in its development. And it's always been to reduce incidents and improve performance. Okay, others might think it's about money. I don't really care about money. I love making things, and that's the actual truth. What really makes me happy to go to work is making things. And the Virtual Verifier, I think, is one of the pinnacles of what it could be. It could be amazing. So we're going to talk about this. And please ask questions and make your voice heard. So the concept, I don't have to read that out to you. And I don't have to read that out to you either. So we've always wanted to automate process. We've been talking about automating process today and about making things easier and quicker to do. And our goal has always, my goal has always been to provide information to assessed candidates so they can take ownership of their own competence. And if they take ownership of their own competence, then their manager has to do less work, their manager has to do less work. It'd be perfect. So what I imagine I want, okay, is, I don't know if so this is obviously, you have to have watched certain films, but if you've seen The Matrix and you've seen Minority Report, okay, so what I want in my mind is I want an engine or a piece of software that predicts incidents before they happen, solves crimes before they happen, goes, and we turn up in a nice pair of pants over a pair of trousers, depending on your preference, to solve it and to save that safety critical person from having an incident. What has worked before? Now, this came from a long time ago. And I don't even remember his name now, but there was a depot in a far place a long time ago, and they did a little experiment on that depot. And they looked through all the incidents that the drivers had had, okay, and then they used a formula to predict when those drivers would have incidents in the future, okay? And at SWR, for a little bit, there were post-it notes. And then this depot was done somewhere else. I used the post-it notes, and I used to smear a post-it note in people's folders with a date on it, predicting when that driver would have another incident. I was asked to stop doing that because it makes people liable, especially if they have an incident. So, but what I wanted to do, in this scenario, this actually worked. Essentially, you take the date the safety critical person first became competent, then you have the date to their first incident, and the date to their second, and the date to the third, and what you do is you work out the average number of days between starting the job and incidents. Then you project that forward into a date in the future, put 3 months around it, and then go and talk to that driver or safety critical person about all the things that they've had problems with incidents in the past, and then they don't have the incident. Okay? Or in other places where I've been, when we first started doing it, I'll tell you what you could do. Well, you just take him off. Take him off for those 3 months. He won't have an incident, will he? Which would work. the same person who also said a long time ago, I'm doing that person's accent, is you could go, well, I'll tell you what, that person will never have an incident ever again, I guarantee it. What did you do? Well, we sacked him. And you go, okay, that's great for a multi-spouse signal. You did a great job. That one person was the sacrifice that we got rid of. Now, this depot reduced their incidents in half in a year that they did that bizarre smoke and mirrors activity on. By the way, it's a terrible formula. Okay, it is a bad thing. But what it told me it told me that if you give an assessor or a manager something to go and engage and talk about around performance criteria with an assessed candidate, you wake them up. You make them think. You make them start thinking about safety systems, about actions they could do, that they may have started to, Pip, you put up the competence line. The classic competence line goes up for training and then erodes. And what you've done there is you've created an instance for it to go up. All you've done is that. All it is an excuse to engage someone. And you've told someone, hey, go and talk to this person about these specific events. So, and I think I've probably answered that. All it did was create a focused assessment. Okay, the formula is bad. It makes no sense whatsoever to do, but it works. But it only works because we're giving someone an opportunity to go and talk to another person about something. And that's what an assessment is. That's what an assessment is. And what we tried to do with the information we've been gathering over the last 10 years that we've been doing it is developmental assessments, which focus an area for work on. Now, we still go out and do assessments with everything, but we're starting to focus with our reds and ambers. So that's what I wanted. So the issues. If we could have our matrix-style intervention, are we adequately equipped to deal with the information? So if a machine started pumping out real stuff that said these drivers need help, or these dispatchers need help, or these conductors need help, do we have the resource to actually manage it at the moment? I believe we might be stretched. Yeah? Or we might take them off. Those are the sort of attitudes we have to look at. Oh, take them off. Yeah, give them a week off. Great. Off track, you're done. So that's not going to work. Oh. How will it be received by senior management? How does senior management at the moment feel about reds? How does or ones or ambers? They would maybe prefer, and I'm speaking for them, this is no proof, they may prefer that all our safety critical people only have greens, because they can look at it and go, yeah, look at that. That's perfect. That's not the truth. So they need to be educated for our drivers or our dispatchers or conductors to have reds and still be able to carry out their duties. So there's something to think about. Middle management. Middle management are people who take people off. It's much easier to take them off. Get rid of them. No, like that. And then we'll take you off. The unions. What would they think of that information and how would they deal with it? And then the actual person, the main thing is what if I told a candidate, I'm not going to point at you, I'm going to point at that person, they don't exist because I don't want you to have an incident, you're far too valuable. But once I said that person there is going to have an incident or potentially have an incident, a high risk of having an incident next week. What are you going to do as a person if we don't arm you with everything you could do to stop having an incident? We may well make that person have an incident. So, as I unpack what I want, Virtual Verifier, this is just one tiny part of Virtual Verifier, by the way. It does all the other things that we want to do. But are we equipped, or are we just creating a huge pit full of spikes with a dragon in? And that's this is all the things I have to think about all the time. Well, not have to think about, I like thinking about. So what I wanted to do is, because I've been trying to think about how to approach this, And I've not even thought about how I would deal with the fallout. But I wanted to define precursors in the form of criteria marked red or amber. I said, would it be great, right? And I've said this to Tanya, hates me, by the way. Because I'd say to her, wouldn't it be great if we could map safety critical persons, they had an incident, map their reds and ambers. Because I think we're getting to the point now where when this assessment process was fairly early, there was a lot of greens, and there's still a lot of greens where there shouldn't be, and but we're learning it and we're standardising. But we're getting to the point where we actually could maybe do that. Now the problem we have is that's only a snapshot in time at that point, okay, and we'd have to do it hundreds of times, but also to get it right, we'd have to do it across the whole railway to get a proper view. Otherwise, we're going to have odd, weird data again. So all of the things I look at, I go, that's not going to work. Because I don't want to do a smoke and mirrors again. I don't want a smoke and mirrors. I want a proper job. So it's like a bigger job than we thought. What I imagine is I could have a footprint of a person before an incident and apply them all to others who have not had the incident. So I'd go, there's your map. And what we do is we go, they had an incident, and the computer would go, oh, all of these people are also going to have an incident. Now, that's not going to work. It's not going to be true. And there's lots more people in work and all over the place who are much cleverer than me who've said, oh, you can't do that because it'll be wrong, it'll be this, it'll be that. There are so many incident types which are similar. So, TPWS. If it goes off, it's stopped a SPAD, but is it a SPAD? And I start looking at all of these things, a stop short, an overrun. Are they the same? Are they different? And I think about these things a lot. And sometimes in the evenings, and then they're just going to be boring. But I try to, unless we get a fix on all this data, it's so massive, the data that we're gathering, it's so complicated. So there are so many different footprints and skills. Interesting things I've found, and then I'm going to get onto behaviours. Did you know that most, and sorry for everyone else here at the moment, because I know that I'm fully embracing conductors and dispatchers, so no one's being left out, and control, okay, and engineers, sorry, just for a second. Just so you know, Pip, I'm an engineer as well. I've got a mill and a lathe, so I'm all over that. The horn. Most drivers who have incidents also have problems using the horn. I mean, there have been smirks before when we talked about this. I didn't see it, to be honest, because I'm not built that way. Disgusting. But they have issues using the horn. I think that's interesting. So one of is use of the horn. So how is that? How does that equate? If I'm having a TPWS or an overrun or stop short or a SPAD, why am I bad at using the horn? I don't know. I haven't got an idea. So there's a criteria. Uses the warning horn where required and as appropriate. Now, use of the warning horn, would you agree how to use it is a technical skill? Thanks for the nod there. I love that. It's a bit of interaction. It's not just me thinking, he's talking crap up the front. What's the non-technical part? Why is he getting a red and amber? She, could be a she, sorry. So why are they getting a red and amber? And it's probably about behaviour. They know how to use the horn, but actually it's about NTS. It's about non-technical skills. It's about a positive attitude to rules and procedures. Thank you for the RSSB for that wonderful suite. So it's about, for me, it's about the attitude to the horn and how you feel about it and how you think it should be used. because everyone knows how it should be used properly, but people use it in different ways. Some people use it to annoy other people. It's like when you're driving your car and someone pulls in front of you. What do? You toot them. Yeah. Oi, what was that? You're telling them off with the horn. That's poor use of the horn. The horn is for you to use to prevent an incident, to say, hey, stop moving. You're doing something, but not as a punishment for someone. And that's just for everyone who drives a car would hopefully know that that's the proper use of the horn. So it's about, for me, it's about NTS. It's about non-technical skills. It's about behaviours. That's what drive incidents. If we do incident investigation, we know that most issues come down to behaviours. There's obviously some technical thing, but it's mostly down to behaviour. Oh. I've written it for myself. So we already, in our system, can associate non-technical skills with performance criteria. Let's keep ahead of ourselves. What have we got? So let's just put it up there so you've got it. Then I can talk about it. By the way, all of these points here, the horn, train control, running brake test, comms, GSMR, those are the highest things that people have issues with, reds and ambers. Every driver has an issue with those items. That's the majority of the things which are high on the list. Some of them are pretty simple to follow, comms, train control. The horn for me is the curveball, which is why I picked it out. But all of those things can be mapped to a non-technical skill, to a behaviour, or to behaviours. Now, you could obviously map every single one in every single time to every single behaviour, depending on the instance, but there are common ones which are easy to do. Comms, clarity, listening. You could also do checking in there if you wanted to. But we've already mapped those and can, in our system at the moment, map technical skills with non-technical skills. And those are in the form of supplementary criteria. And we can report on that. Have we done anything with them yet? Not really. Some companies have got them mapped already underneath. Do we do anything with them? No. And actually, I'm not even sure we have a report on them yet that does it. So, but that's something we're going to work on because we did that for future-proofing. That's a future-proofed. And out from that, what we're essentially doing is filtering a large number of technical skills through, and with some NTS description and language to help the assessor understand what's happening in that, filtering them through technical skills, non-technical skills. So we'll be able to have non-technical skills profiles. Now, if we take incidents and do the same thing, you cannot do this at the moment on our system, just so you know, okay? You cannot do this. But it came to me the other day that what we would be really super useful, in fact, it didn't come to me, it came from Jules. It would be super useful for us to be able to map an individual who's been involved in an incident, what non-technical skills failed them. Because we know that. Matt, we're talking about, when you're doing the DCP, you do your lead investigator, you can map the behaviours which failed them. When we support drivers through incidents, can map those behavioural skills. But we don't map those at the minute, but perhaps we should. Because then we can have an output from them. We can filter all incidents through non-technical skills. And then we will end up with some sort of large beast that's all sewn together. But what we can start doing is start laying out the foundation for precursors. So we've got criteria associated with NTS, which we talked about. Incidents associated with NCS. So now we can produce reports that can aid an assessor or a candidate, and this is what's really important, to take ownership of their own competence. So we can actually then give information. Don't ever want a machine to decide a human's fate. Okay? What we want to do is put really good information into people's hands that helps them look after their own competence. So let's put those. What issues? This is questions for you to. What issues can be foreseen? What can we do about them? How can I own them? Now, this is where it comes to the sort of largest beast. What I'd love to be able to do, and we've talked about this, and do you know what I really love? Because our company's got quite big, I can sit down there and listen to things Hannah's saying, which I don't know about because I can't know everything. And I go, oh my God, that's really good. I really want to buy that. And that's happened a few times. I go, what an amazing idea. So it just means the team's great. So what we've got here is, it's always been my aspiration to link all of our performance criteria with micro lessons based on technical and non-technical issues. So that if we had something like the Virtual Verifier, which was then flagging behaviors, which then flagged to a load of people, these things need to happen, they can do micro lessons based on what they need to learn. Brendan's GSMR app. Love that app. It takes the fear away of pushing the red button. But actually what we do is we do an assessment. We have filtered through non-technical skills, through non-technical skills, which has been filtered before through incidents. I hope I'm speaking some sense. It is a little bit garbled in my mind, but hopefully it makes sense. You would then be able to assess someone, and the Virtual Verifier would go, hey, you should do this lesson here, right? And then it sends it to you so that you can do it. And that's just one of its roles that I'd love it to do. Now, there's a sort of evil genius happening underneath all of this, which I always go, we should make this, then it would be able to do this. In my mind, the Virtual Verifier, okay, and I've not even spoken about the others with this, but in my mind, the Virtual Verifier, once it's built by all of us together, would just be popped in the base module and you never have to buy it. Because I think it's part and parcel of what should be underneath the system. So, but what the Virtual Verifier would do is it would look through your incidents. It would look through your assessments. It would use its algorithms and formula to say people who are higher risk. It would then send bulletins to people and say, hey, you should do this course. That would be great. And then it would send a check to the manager and say, hey, go and check him. He did a course the other day. And so all of those things can link together, and they can link together with AssessBook. So we can create micro lessons for people, and then we can join the whole thing together so that a manager now is forearmed and doesn't have to take someone off, but they can give them a lesson to do. Go and do this, go and do that. And if they don't do the lesson, whose fault is it? Their own. And live poll. Andrew must be pumped out for the question.
While you're filling the live poll, I do have some questions. Will Tisdale, Sally, can you send me the slides? Yes, Will, I'll send you my slides. From Stuart Player, when we do investigations, can we also add a tab to link the causes with the competence criteria that is 1 or 2, as in red or amber, and this automatically generates an additional assessment so you can pick up the criteria on subsequent assessments?
So that's exactly the sort of thing we want to hear. Yes, yes. Because what I don't want to do is, this doesn't exist. I mean, you can see all the parts of it exist already, but we don't want to make something without hear back from them. That's a great idea. Yes.
Justin Willett, identifying areas and times or potential increase of risk that can make a driver more likely to have an incident works best if it includes the depot risk profile. This could help inform a more flexible approach to assessment scheduling and type of assessment event.
Yes, it definitely makes sense, Justin. So, but we're coming back to you to get more information to get that, because we need to work out how we'd integrate that into the process.
Andrew Taylor. I don't think it's possible to map NTS to performance criteria in a useful way. Brackets. Oh, hang on, it's moved. I hate it when it does that. Some NTS may be more relevant to a task than others, but any NTS could apply in certain circumstances. Could we make it possible for an assessor to indicate which NTS are in play when rating a task, with the data populating a profile of the candidate's NTS strengths and weaknesses? This could drive more targeted development for individual candidates, such as those with similar profiles to someone who's had an incident.
So, Andrew, yes, of course, like I said, there are multiple different, you could have multiple NTSs against a single performance criteria. However, now we've talked about before about doing marking, opening up an assessment criteria so you can grade it and put an NTS against it. The problem we've got there is it's too, the assessors don't do it. There's too many keystrokes, or they don't understand which one it is. There's Andrew, you'd be able to do it, okay? But I don't think the rest of the railway's ready for that yet. So, but I'm interested to talk to you more about it, which I'm going to do in real life very soon, I'm sure.
Justin, oh no, we've had that one. I think I might have closed the wrong question a minute ago. If somebody...
Can they get that back?
If so, I'll figure it out in a minute. Paul Atherfold, not actually a question. We've added in the causes section a link to the CMS for where the individual involved in an incident has failed in either a technical or a non-technical criteria within our CMS. We can then filter the causes report to highlight the common areas.
So
do you want to say something about how that works? Can someone give Paul the mic? Do you want to explain that a bit? I think that's quite interesting.
Oh, try again. Is it working? Ozzy, help him out. Do we need to enable the microphones in any way or turn them on? Have we got another one?
Do you want to give him the other one?
Go for that one, Pat. Have you got it?
Is that working now?
Perfect.
So basically what we wanted to do was highlight in incident investigations where the driver had failed the CMS criteria within the CMS. So for example, if the driver has a SPAD but didn't set the DRA, we wanted to highlight that relevant criteria within our incident report. So we created a new cause within the causes section of the investigation and added all the add a section to link where we could just document what criteria we linked it to, and then if we wanted to do any analysis looking at any common areas, we just run the causes report and filtered for that particular.
So do you manually type that performance
Yes.
criteria? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. But that's something that would be useful maybe to add to the incident investigation system. We need to think about how that works, but I like it.
I think that's all. Yeah, that's all the questions.
Okay. So
Are there any more questions from the floor, guys? Anybody got anything they'd like to ask about?
So really what I want to do
Oh,
there...
here comes one.
Oh, go on.
Justin Willett. Most incidents will have a similar NTS profile as they are not designed to be used as a discrete set of causal factors on their own. Have done loads of analysis on this and it comes out the same, linking to the performance criteria. Justin, do you want to elaborate on that? Can someone give Justin a mic, please?
Sorry, Sally, I meant to type a bit more, but my thumb got stuck with the bottom.
I saw you...
Yeah, so linking it to the performance criteria is probably more useful. Trying to do thematic analysis on NTS really isn't, because they're all the same. We could list now the NTS that form the vast majority of the factors that lead to our incidents. So we know that. I think the link to the more detailed performance criteria is probably the more useful aspect of that.
Yes. So what we need to find a way of linking, because I think we'd learn loads from cross-referencing data across TOCs, but the problem is everyone's performance criteria is different. So we need to find a way, team, of finding those links that we can add something at performance criteria when we're creating it to be able to filter properly, so that we can match those together. Because I've said, like, when we're looking at all the performance criteria lists, I'm looking at performance criteria lists now, and you can pick out precursors, but they're the precursors that I think they are, based on what I've seen. But is that the truth? Is that the truth across everyone? So I'd love to hear from you what you think. Have you got?
Yeah, well, as I've still got the mic.
Yeah.
So I also think, and let's be honest, some of that performance criteria that is marked up as items for review, some of that is often frequent low-hanging fruit. Running brake tests often picked up on a download. Not sounding the warning horn, perhaps they haven't looked at their watch, so they've sounded it at the wrong time or something. So I do wonder how much of this is there because it presents itself more easily to capture as a review item, rather than actually what are some of the key behavioural indicators of that person that we haven't picked up, left unchecked, could then result in them having more vulnerability for having an incident, making a cock-up? Yes,
and that's why I wanted to link. Can we get Jules the mic as well? Pat, take Jules the mic. That's why I wanted to link criteria with behaviour and incidents with behaviour. I'm not saying this is the easy thing to do, but to find those links so that we can start building them.
Can I be heard? Yes. Sorry. One of the key things that we're trying to get here is a circular model. Now, what Gabe is introducing us to at the moment is the concept of getting that internal looped model into the system in a very embryonic way. Now, linking back to it, non-technical skills means that there are elements which will be marked off, regardless of what the assessor does. Those non-technical skills will be cascaded into the system. Now, at the moment, we don't have a facility to get that starting point going. What Gabe is talking about at the moment is how do we bootstrap this process? It's not there right now. How do we get it into the system? And non-technical skills, and I think you quite rightly said, are a low-hanging fruit. It's a good place to start. What I'm expecting to have happen over the course of us introducing this into the system is we'll start to pinpoint where we're finding these problems occurring with the staff, and then possibly change the performance criteria. And perhaps we might even start annotating that performance criteria such that when they get marked off in a particular fashion, you can see it indicates there may be a tendency to have this kind of incident. So, although, I completely agree with you, it is low-hanging fruit, without a doubt. We have to start somewhere to get the loop started. And I think what will end up happening in the end is we'll get a much better view of potential incidents over time.
Yeah. So thank you, sir. What I'd like to do is invite those people who are interested in that, and I'm going to start some sort of project off in some way that we can look at what. Sorry, go on, sir. Can you get Adrian a microphone?
Sorry, while you're doing that, Michael, my live poll results disappeared.
So it just falls back to my earlier comment really about RBTNAs.
Yes.
Because understanding the data from performance criteria will link back to RBTNAs, and that may be a way of comparing different tops, because the actual task of sounding the horn, driving the train, whatever level you're looking at, all goes back, might have different performance criteria in terms of the written word, but the RBTNA, the tasks will be a lot similar, I would have thought. And then by taking it back to that process, identifying incidents that are occurring, that you can then, when you're doing your risk analysis, your risk assessment, that should identify maybe different ways of training, different ways of developing people at that.
Yes.
Right back to source.
And that's when you said that earlier. I thought that's a great idea, and I think that's a really good way of linking them together. So we're definitely making a note of that to start with. But that's all my stuff. Would you got some more questions?
Yep, I have. And just to let you know, on a scale of 0 to 5, in terms of how interested you all are in the virtual verifier, the overall answer was 4. So they're quite interested in this, Gabe.
That's good. That's good.
And,
Pardon? Get it sorted.
Get it sorted, yeah. So I have some comments here from Matt Ryan. Love this. Is there a way to link the virtual verifier to personal performance, i.e. lateness, sickness? All good ideas, Matt. There isn't, because it doesn't exist. It's a twinkle in Gabriel's eye, but we'll certainly include you.
I'm certainly saying that it doesn't not completely exist. I can see all the bits. What we need to do is start pushing them together and creating those items. Now, I do...
Question from Andrew Taylor. In general, across all the companies AssessTech works with, how does Gabriel rate the quality of data on criteria ratings versus what would be needed to make this vision a reality? How good are people with their reds, ambers and greens, Gabe?
Well, do you know what? I don't actually, because unless I've got permission to dibble about in your system, I do not touch it. And everyone's under strict instructions. Unless you're asked to go and help, you do not touch it. We just help with process, and we don't, because we're in a strange position in that as a software company that does railway software, we're also quite good at railway. So we purposely don't do it unless we're asked to go and look and help. But what is Andrew saying? Which company's best at doing their?
No, he's asking overall, are people generally quite good at using reds, ambers and greens, or are they a bit rubbish?
No, not at all, not at all. Depending on who has their hand on the tiller at the company, you very quickly find that if we're doing lots of standardization and activities, at the beginning it was pretty bad, but that was 12 years ago, and I'd say on the whole everyone's pretty darn good at doing reds and ambers. There's still those amongst us who are, who just push the green button because it's much easier, but everyone on the whole is doing very well. I think it's really it's basically become an industry standard now for grading.
No, perfect. There are a couple of other comments about the usefulness of NTS, which I won't read out because we're clearly all going to have a ding-dong if I do. So we'll leave those on there and say thank you very much.
No worries. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Just in case you haven't all had enough to eat, we're now going to have a quick refreshment break, and I think there's some cake. Can we please be back at 2:50? Thank you.